Welcome to Buffalo Gameday Recap. I'm Thad Brown. He is AJ Feldman. The Bills win another division. They score 30 points again. They dominate another team. But this time, they do it in a few inches of snow. And AJ, you know, as the long-standing veteran of this duo, I've done more than my share of games in the snow. So I sat up in the warm press box tonight. You were on the field. Tell everybody at home what this snow globe was like being in the middle of it.
It really was a snow globe. You know, you had to look up in a while and like take a look. I mean, I'm just doing it right now. It's very fun to look at that in the lights. You know, do you enjoy looking up at?
I've done it
lights?
before, so I'm not as impressed.
I mean, I've done it before at a smaller scale.
I'm the OG
but,
of this group,
yes.
so go ahead. Yeah.
But no, it was a lot of fun down on the field. It was a weird kind of flow of the game because. You know, they come out to the lead. Allen has the big play, you know, the lateral to Cooper. And then the game just kind of like gets stuck for like 12 minutes. Like everybody's just waiting for the party to erupt. You know, no one has anything else better to do but throw snowballs, which,
not appreciated.
Exactly. Everybody on the sides. But no, it was a really fun atmosphere. You know, the Bills Mafia got into it a lot. You know, the 5th straight divisional title for the Bills.
Let's talk about the play that everybody's going to be talking about from this game, the Amari Cooper to Josh Allen lateral, which is just the latest ridiculous thing that Josh Allen did on a football field. But you know what? Deion Dawkins had a great take on this. It seems like a Josh Allen play, but it's really an Amari Cooper play. You know, This is a play where a receiver stood up. There's 2 guys on him, you know, ready to tackle him. And, yeah, Josh Allen has the awareness and the interest as a quarterback to go over and get involved. There's probably 2 quarterbacks in the league that might even think of that. But Cooper's got to have the belief and the trust to be able to know that if I flip this ball to the quarterback, A, it's going to work, but B, my quarterback's not going to get his knee taken out. I'm not going to be hated by everybody in the locker room for giving him the ball in that spot. So there's multiple angles to it, and Deion really was impressed with the trust factor that Cooper had on that play.
Yeah, you know, he's got the veteran presence to kind of overweigh the newness factor. I think, you know, somebody who's been here for, 5-6 games, something like that, maybe even less than that, to have that kind of trust in your quarterback, to have that trust that, you know, Sean McDermott isn't going to, you know.
Chew you out?
Yeah, chew you out for making such a decision. It was just a crazy play. It was so far on the other side of the field and through so many different bodies. I didn't even know what happened until I looked at the replay, because I'm just kind of going through the math in my head. I'm like, what possibly could have led to such a play? And as the stuff that I was able to see, I'm like, oh, you know what? Maybe it was a lateral to Josh Allen. That seems very, you know, fitting for the players involved, for Josh in specific. But no, and it's funny, on the last time we did this show, it was after the Chiefs game, we were like, the touchdown run to seal the game, you know, Jim Nantz calls it the play of the year in the NFL. We were like, this is number 1 on his MVP resume. We've got competition now. We've got competition now.
Let me tell you the point of view from the press box. You'll like this story. So the play happens, and immediately all of us in the press box are trying to decide, what is that statistically? You know, I knew that on a lateral play, you get credit as the second guy to touch the ball for receiving yards, but not a catch. But the question was, how do you adjudicate the touchdown? And my initial thought was, well, Josh would get receiving yards and a receiving touchdown, but not a catch. And then the question was, well, does he get a passing touchdown? And there were debates. We actually checked with the statistical team up in the Bills press box that is constantly every single play calling out what happens over and over. And it took a few minutes to kind of identify, and I had to actually go back to Lions. They ran a straight-up hook and ladder earlier in the year where Jared Goff did get credit for a touchdown pass on the play, even though it was Amon-Ra St. Brown to Jahmyr Gibbs. But yes, Josh Allen got a touchdown catch and a pass on that play. And then, of course, the immediate thought after that is, how many fantasy games were swung because Josh Allen scored a 10-point play in most leagues with a passing touchdown and a receiving touchdown? But moving past that, and you brought up the MVP reel for Josh Allen. The numbers in general weren't big. I think he had 170-something total yards, which for any quarterback is a fine, meh kind of number. But the 4 touchdowns, even though only 3 times he actually scored a touchdown, he gets counted for 4 touchdowns.
He's, you know, we talk about efficiency. This is Josh Allen at his most efficient. 4 touchdowns on 3 scoring plays.
I think there's no doubt when you're that efficient that you are now the leader for the MVP. And when we say leader, you know, I think we're to the point now where it probably would take something, I don't want to say unforeseen, but I think certainly unlikely to unseat him from that spot. I mean, we were kind of talking about in the media room, maybe if Saquon Barkley goes for a ridiculous 2,400 rushing yards.
A ridiculous
number, exactly. The record for the NFL in a season is 2,105, and that's in 16 games too. So you got to look a lot better than that. And Philly would probably have to be the 1 seed for that to happen. Or somehow the Bills lose a couple games, they end up as a mediocre coming down the stretch 2 seed. Lamar plays great or something. This is what we're talking about now. The MVP race is not over, but the amount of things that would happen for Josh Allen not to get MVP is shrinking rapidly.
Yeah, I think he would, A, have to lose it, and B, someone would have to take it combined.
Well, yeah, you're right. That's a good way to put it.
Nobody can take it from him, and Josh can't just lose it to,
the field.
Yeah, exactly. I think the Bills would have to lose both to the Rams and the Lions, which could happen, and then I think they'd even have to choke away one of the final 3 divisional games, which would kind of be a pretty embarrassing loss. So I think it would take a pretty big collapse from the Bills and Allen and somebody else taking, because there's really no prime candidate. I mean, yeah, Barkley could get numbers, but especially in this day and age, running back getting that award seems unlikely. I mean, maybe do the Lions only have 1 loss right now still? Yeah. I mean, maybe if the Lions go 16-1, Jared Goff can take it just based on record. But still, I mean, he's not putting up crazy numbers, but a quarterback on a 16-1 team, is a good argument.
Yeah, for sure, but I think the problem with the Goff argument is that their offensive weapons are so spread out. I mean, who's the best offensive player? Is it the quarterback? Is it Jahmyr Gibbs?
It's Penei Sewell.
Is it the offensive tackle? Yeah, I mean, that's the legitimate argument there. So, yeah, I think you summed it up well with Josh would have to lose it and someone else has to step up and take it. And like we said, the likelihood of that is fairly small. Now, outside of Josh Allen in this game, I think the other thing to be impressed with the Bills was the way they ran it. James Cook had a 65-yard touchdown. Ray Davis scored. The Bills were averaging nearly 9 yards a carry in the first half. Mm-hmm. James Cook had 100 yards by halftime. Now, this weather was kind of built for, running the ball a little more than passing. And we can get into a little bit the state of the 49ers in this game. They didn't put up a whole lot of fight, but regardless, the Bills took a team that's normally well known for being physical and punched them in the mouth over and over and over.
Yeah, when you play in snow like this, it does advantage the offense in terms of, footing, because you know where you're going. The defense doesn't. So you've got to make one move. The other person's got to, react to that.
And to that point, Rasul Douglas said one of the problems that he had throughout this game was he spent the whole game changing out cleats, trying to figure out what the best way to keep footing was. So as a defensive player, not only are you trying to react, but you're not even sure your footing is going to hold.
Yeah, and James Cook himself, I don't know if he looked incredibly comfortable. He even on, some of his runs, he's doing the 5 steps to try and make a move, he's going to a stutter step to try and make a stop. But no, you play the game in the elements that it was, and being here in Western New York and Orchard Park, especially these days, you're getting these games a lot, and in January, you need to run the ball. So I think it's a good sign against a team that, like you said, is known for their defense. But at this point, they're kind of a shell of the 49ers that we've all come to know and love in the NFC.
David Edwards talked about how afterward the Bills tried some zone running, which is what they've been primarily doing this year, went away from that to more of a duo run, which is a little more of a power run. And that's what succeeded, so they stayed with it. And one of my favorite things that Joe Brady has done this year is that when he finds something that works, he will ram it into the ground until the other team proves it can be stopped. And I think the James Cook touchdown run was a duo run. Regardless, you talk about James Cook having issues. In the first quarter, I thought he was going to struggle because, like you said, his advantage is being able to get ahead of steam and making cuts at full speed. When you're in this kind of weather, you never get to full speed. Mm-hmm. They found ways to open creases for him and get him to full speed and make him effective. Ray Davis doesn't need that. Ray Davis is going to plow you over.
And Ty Johnson as well. He had a couple.
Same thing.
A nice run or two.
So again, this was a group effort at the end of the day. But credit to Joe Brady, credit to the offensive line, making things work for those running backs. Speaking of the Niners, though, they came into this game short. Nick Bosa, Trent Williams, another lineman on each side of the ball. Their nickel corner didn't play. Brandon Ayuk has been out for weeks. Then during the game, Christian McCaffrey goes out in the first quarter when it looked like the Niners could hang in this game, just giving the ball to McCaffrey over and over in this game. The Niners have been kind of a nice way to sum up really the only ding on this Bills start so far, in that they really haven't played they haven't beat anybody other than the Chiefs. I mean, the other 10 wins at this point, there's one other team that's over 500, and this Niners team was one that was supposed to be good, like the division was supposed to be good, like maybe the rest of the AFC South that the Bills played a lot this year was supposed to be better. The schedule has ended up a whole lot trashier than expected, and the Bills, you can't knock them for it. Give them credit for blasting most of these teams, but this is the one thing I look at, which is they've only really beaten one good team so far.
Yeah, and it's just the way the schedule, is shaped up. They've, it's a little schedule dependent, but they've seemingly found their groove, turned things around ever since they played the Texans and the Ravens. So they've only had one, the Seahawks, I guess. They've passed all the tests that they can. But no, this Niners team, going into this game, they 5-6, right?
5-7 now, yeah.
Yeah,
yep.
So they're 5-6, and my first instinct was, man, the Bills kind of got them at kind of a difficult spot. They got their season on their line. They're going to be, guns ablazes, everything but the kitchen sink. And then I kind of thought about it a little more, and I'm like, this also kind of feels just like the Bills put the dagger in them. Like, they're a team that's ripe for the picking, and just the injuries catch up, the playing deep into the postseason year after year catches up, and it's just goodbye San Francisco.
I mean, they're only 2 games out in the division.
Yeah.
That's the other part of it, too. Like, I talked to a few people who were like, well, they got to win this game or their season's over, right? I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's the Seahawks, and you're only 2 games back with 5 to go. The Niners are not going to be on this plane thinking their season is over. It might be, but they're not going to be thinking that going back home.
The fact that Christian McCaffrey's out for the season
is
going to mentally weigh on them.
Separate of that idea.
They're going to look at the standings and be like, oh, we can do this. And then they're going to look over Christian McCaffrey with a brace or crutches or whatever, and they'll be like, oh, man, this is going to be really tough. And they're going to have to look at the standings and be like, oh, man, we can do this, guys. And then they're going to look at the back of the plane, and all their injured guys will be back there. So, it's going to be an interesting flight for them.
Vacation planning has begun in earnest for the Niners. Let's talk about the Bills, though. They're not going to have any vacations being planned, and we kind of touched on the fact they haven't, really
except
played
for AJ Klein and his RV.
They might need him because this is going to be likely a long playoff run for the Bills. Obviously,
we don't actually think they're going to call up AJ Klein.
No,
let's just put that on the record.
Right. Well, talk about Matt Milano in a sec too.
Yeah,
but I'm going to get back to let's talk about Matt Milano.
Okay, let's do it.
Since you brought him up. Used them on first and second down. Sean McDermott talked about the fact that was the plan. They ended up not having that many third downs in the game, just the way the game went. It was kind of a weird game. The Niners either were running for 18 yards or they were getting into 1 third down and being off the field. Look, it's going to take, we talked about it, Matt Milano, it's going to take him a while to shake off the rust. I think the thing that I would want to caution Bills fans on thinking is that Matt Milano's going to solve the run game issues. He's not. Their issues are wider ranging than one body. He will help because he's ridiculous when he's good, but it's going to take a while for him to get to good.
No, and I think, I haven't seen the official snap counts, whatever,
Right.
but I think the amount of snaps he played was very promising today.
I agree.
I think more often than not, when I was mentally okay, is Matt Milano on the field? More often than not, he was out there. And then just the fact of these conditions, Sean McDermott even talked about it on his Friday press conference. The fact that there's, snow and bad, conditions, it does impact how much you play those questionable guys. You don't want to push them in these, weird conditions as they're, just figuring things out. So I think the fact that he played as much as he did is encouraging. It's tough to tell from the silence, but it seemed like he was in good positions, multiple times, made a couple of tackles. So, he's going to work his way back into this thing. He's got a couple of weeks, obviously, until the playoffs start. But I think this is a promising debut for Matt Milano.
And like you said, weeks until the playoff starts. That's the thing. It's getting Matt Milano good for January, not for December 1st, because the Bills now have clinched their 5th straight division title. And this one's a little bit of a surprise if you compare it to where we were back in August, thinking this team might be taking a step back. As we pointed out, the division is not anywhere near as good as we thought it would be, but the Bills are a whole lot better than we thought they would be for a lot of different reasons. A lot of guys have had really good years, a lot of internal development. In the locker room, the Bills, again, talked a lot about trust, about belief. Deion Dawkins spent a good 30 seconds giving credit to the Bills' ownership for having not only belief in players and coaches to do their job, but the general belief this organization has in allowing guys to be themselves. And a guy like Deion Dawkins probably appreciates that more than most. Regardless, the point is valid. This is not a team that when you come here, they try and fit you into their little box. They will make you feel comfortable being who you are, not only personality-wise, But I know I've talked with the defensive lineman about this multiple times, letting you play the way you're comfortable with playing. And it's worked for the Bills now, 5 division titles in a row.
Yeah, and I think that's a point that we've heard over the years, but I think from the outside it would be kind of surprising. Just, Sean McDermott, he's a hard-nosed, he's an old, physical, he's bald,
right.
A defensive-minded guy. And you would think this is like, not a player's coach. You would think he's a tough guy to play under in terms of, like you said, being yourself. And I think it's just a testament of Sean McDermott evolving, figuring out his leadership style, figuring out, how he wants to push buttons, things of that nature, taking the defensive play calling duties last year, giving it to Bobby Babich this year again, I think is another, kind of example of that. So it's really tough to win 5 division titles in the NFL. I know we talked about on the show earlier. It's something like 10 to 15-ish times it's happened in a row, that much sustained success in the division. And these are usually the dynasties, your 70s Steelers, your Cowboys, your 49ers, your Patriots, your Chiefs. The Bills are clearly not at that level yet. The postseason success hasn't come yet. But the track record shows that if you keep putting yourselves in this many positions, eventually you're going to knock down the door.
The thing for me this year for the Bills, it was internal development. Guys, how many guys in this team who have been here for a while are better, notably better than they were last year? Greg Rousseau, Christian Benford, James Cook. They change out the centers. Connor McGovern is fine. Spencer Brown is better. And even Josh Allen. It's funny with Josh Allen, the overall numbers are probably going to be one of his lowest totals in the last 5 years. He's on pace to be less than 4,000 yards. His touchdown pace, even scoring 4 on 3 plays in this game, is on a lower trajectory than he's been the last 5 years. And yet he's the MVP favorite by a lot. And I think the reason for that is he's not forcing the offense as much. He's allowing things to work for him. But he's just one example. You pointed out another one. Bobby Babich. It's not just players. They took an assistant coach and developed him into a really good coordinator. This was the 10th game out of 12 where the Bills defense has not allowed more than 7 points in the second half. How ridiculous is that number? Exactly. So believing in what this team does, developing their own, not having to go out and sign a giant free agent or make a big-time trade. Amari Cooper happened anyway. Regardless, this is still a team that believes in what they do. They trust the process, as much as we hate to hear it. And that, to me, is why this team has won their 5th division title in a row.
Yeah, going into this season, they were backed into a corner. They had to rely on internal growth. The cap was the way it was. Stephon Diggs gets traded away. There's the giant dead cap hit. They didn't really have any options. They had to rely on internal growth. They had to rely on, the draft, develop, and, eventually re-sign. And it worked out. It's the internal development that Kevin Adams would dream about for the Buffalo Sabres over there, as they desperately hope that they can turn things around. But no, they had to do it, and they did. And it's a credit to the coaching staff. It's a credit to the players. It's a credit for, not even just the coaches, that we know about, that we're talking about, the assistant coaches, the positional coaches. Mm-hmm. We've heard stories about, Jamil Adai, the cornerbacks coach, down the line, Bobby Babich starts his press conference last week saying, hey, I don't talk about my assistant coaches very much. Let's read off all their names and let you know how much I appreciate them. And I'm sure Joe Brady, of course, feels the same exact way. So it really is top to bottom to have this much success in a league that thrives on parity. It just doesn't happen very often.
And it is happening here in Buffalo for a 5th consecutive year. And now the goal is the 1 seed. Spencer Brown got a quick question about, how do you keep focus now that you've already clinched the division? You got like a whole month of the season left. He's like, hey, we want to be the 1 seed. The Chiefs are out there for us to catch. And I think the Bills have a decent opportunity to catch them going down the stretch.
And Josh Allen did kind of talk about that. Obviously, it's a goal, but the main goal, number one, is to win the division. He said, we can play a little more free now. We've got our playoff game. We've got our home playoff game. We can kind of not relax, obviously, but just loosen up a little bit. So I think, that's an interesting note as well that, it'll be fun to see what the mindset shift is as they kind of, try and chase down the Chiefs and get this 1 seed.
All right, next week it is a trip to L.A. and then a game in Detroit. I'm happy for a West Coast game and then a Dome game because the Winter Wonderlands are fun to watch, but not fun to experience in my experience.
Up in the press box?
Well, I have to be on the field for the road game, so this is why I'm looking forward to West Coast, L.A., palm trees, and indoor coming up. But I got to do the road game end of the year in New England, so you never know.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
For AJ Feldman, I'm Thad Brown. Remember,
I'll
you
go
can
to LA if you want me to.
No.
I've always been a dutiful soldier. Just like, Josh Allen talked about the Snow Angels. He's like, when my coach tells me to do something, I'll do it. I'll do Snow Angel. When Thad tells me to go to Los Angeles, I'll go. So I'm happy to take that sacrifice.
Just want to point out that that's probably about the only thing that he'll do when I tell him to do it, just so you know. All right. As always, you can check out Buffalo Gameday Recap at rochesterfirst.com. Click on the sports tab. You can find us at 8 Sports Extra. We're also on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Like we said, next week will be a 4 o'clock start in LA. Bills and the Rams. Bills will be favored, but it is a tricky game. It'll be fun to see how they handle that Rams potentially pesky offense. For AJ Feldman, I'm Thad Brown. No Snow Angels for us. Hope you enjoyed watching and listening. We'll see you next week.
No Snow Angels yet.